For 3 years, she sat in English classes and never said a single word. 3 years? Not once? Not once. She understood everything. She could write perfectly. She read fluently. But the moment a teacher looked at her and asked her to speak, she went completely silent.
That sounds incredibly painful. Why? What was stopping her?
That is exactly what everyone around her wanted to know. And the answer, when she finally found it, was not what any of them expected.
What was the answer?
I will tell you. But first, have you ever been in a room where you knew exactly what you wanted to say in English, and you opened your mouth and nothing came out? I think if we are honest, almost everyone listening right now has felt exactly that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real English Podcast. I am Daniel.
And I am Anna. This is your Sunday episode. And today, we are going to tell you the story of a woman named Priya and the one single moment that broke 3 years of silence. Stay with us, because what she finally said might surprise you completely. Priya grew up in a small town where English was admired but rarely spoken. Her parents spoke it with each other sometimes, formally, carefully, the way you handle something precious and fragile. That is such a beautiful image, English as something fragile. And fragile things make people nervous. From a very young age, Priya learned that English was something you could get wrong, something that could embarrass you in front of others, something that revealed exactly how educated or how sophisticated or how worthy you were. Can you relate to that? The feeling that your English somehow reflects your intelligence or your value as a person? Now, Priya carried that belief into every English classroom she ever sat in, and the belief whispered the same thing every time. If you speak and you make a mistake, everyone will know. Everyone will judge. Everyone will see exactly how far you have to go. That is such a heavy thing to carry, especially as a child. It followed her into adulthood. By the time she was 26, she had an excellent job, a job that required her to write complex reports in English, which she did brilliantly. But in meetings, in any situation where she had to speak English in front of others, she would feel it.
Feel what?
That freeze, that complete shutdown. Her mind would go white. The words she knew perfectly well would simply disappear. And she would sit there, intelligent, capable, skilled, looking, she was convinced, like someone who had nothing to say. But she had everything to say. She just could not say it. Exactly. And after years of this, something happened. Something that finally brought everything to a head. She was invited to present at a small team meeting. Just 8 people. People she knew well. And she decided this time she would speak.
What happened?
She walked in, she sat down, the meeting started. And when it was her turn, she opened her mouth. And the freeze came again. Harder than it had ever come before. Oh no. What did she do? That is what I want to tell you. But first, there is something important we need to understand about what was actually happening inside Priya at that moment. Something that has a name in English. And knowing the name, knowing the word, changes everything.
What was happening to Priya? What is that freeze called? What Priya experienced is called vulnerability anxiety, And it is so common among English learners that there is actually research on it. It is the fear of being seen as incompetent. Not just making a mistake, but being judged as less than you are because of a mistake. Vulnerable. Open to being hurt, judged, or criticized. Exposed. Without protection. Speaking a new language makes you feel vulnerable because you cannot hide behind perfect words.
That word vulnerable is so powerful because that is exactly what speaking a new language feels like. You are exposed. Your usual protection of perfect language is gone. And when you feel vulnerable, the body responds. It hesitates. Let us look at that word. Hesitate. To pause before doing something because you are uncertain or nervous. To hold back. She hesitated at the door, her hand on the handle, unable to make herself go in. Priya was not just nervous. She was hesitating for 3 years. 3 years of hesitation. And here's the thing about hesitation. The longer you hesitate, the harder it becomes to act. Because every moment of inaction teaches your brain, this thing is dangerous. Stay away. So, avoiding speaking was actually making the fear bigger? Exactly. Avoidance feeds fear. Every time Priya stayed silent, her brain filed away one more piece of evidence that speaking was something to be afraid of. The silence was not protecting her. It was trapping her. Avoidance. The act of staying away from something that makes you anxious, which ultimately makes the anxiety worse. Avoidance gives you short-term relief, but long-term prison. That is such a powerful phrase. Short-term relief, but long-term prison. And Priya knew this intellectually. She had read about it, she understood it, but understanding fear and overcoming it are two completely different things. Which brings us back to that meeting room. And what happened next? So Priya is sitting in that meeting room. 8 colleagues around a table. The freeze has come. Her mind is white, and she can feel everyone waiting for her to speak. That sounds like one of the most terrifying moments a person can experience.
And then something unexpected happens. Her colleague, a woman named Sunita, who had sat next to Priya for 2 years and knew her well, leans over very quietly and says, "Take your time. 3 words. 3 words." And something about those 3 words, that small permission to exist slowly, broke something open inside Priya. Not fixed it, not cured it, just cracked it enough for light to get in. What did she do? She said one word.
One word.
What was it? I will tell you, I promise, in just a moment. Because first, I need to tell you what happened after she said it and why that one word mattered more than any sentence she had ever written in English. You are killing me with the suspense.
But there is a reason I am making you wait. Because the journey to that word is as important as the word itself. After she said it, something changed in the room. Changed how? Nobody laughed. Nobody judged. Nobody looked at her with the expression she had been dreading for 3 years. Her colleague Sunita simply nodded, and the meeting continued. Normally, warmly, as if what Priya had just done was the most natural thing in the world. Because it was. Because it was. And Priya sat there and felt something she had almost forgotten was possible. She felt okay. Just
okay. Not brilliant, not fluent, not impressive. Just okay. And that was enough? That was everything. Have you ever had a moment where you braced for the worst, and then the worst simply did not arrive? Where the thing you feared turned out to be survivable?
I think that moment, when the feared outcome does not happen, is one of the most powerful things a human can experience. It rewires something fundamental. And for Priya, one okay moment was the crack in the wall that eventually brought the whole thing down. But before I tell you what that word was, there is one more English lesson hiding inside this story, and it is one of the most useful vocabulary lessons we have ever shared. What is the English lesson hidden in Priya's story?
The language of fear and courage. English has several ways to describe being afraid, and each one carries a slightly different feeling. Most learners only know one or two, but knowing all of them makes your English much richer.
What are they?
Scared is the most casual and common. I am scared. It's scary. That was scary. Everyday informal language. Direct, immediate. The feeling of being scared is present right now. Scared. Casual, everyday word for feeling fear. Immediate and informal. I was scared before my first English presentation. My hands were shaking. Afraid is slightly more formal and more lasting. I am afraid of failure. She has always been afraid of being judged. Afraid often describes a deeper, ongoing fear, rather than an immediate moment of fright. Afraid, more formal, describes a deeper, ongoing fear, not just a moment, but a state. She was afraid that her English would never be good enough. That fear lived with her for years.
So scared is in the moment and afraid is more long-term?
That is a very useful way to think about it. And then there is brave and courageous. Two words that are often confused.
What is the difference?
Brave is often used for a single act, a moment of doing something despite fear. That was so brave. She was brave enough to try. Courageous is deeper and more sustained. It describes a character quality. She is a courageous person. He showed great courage over years of difficulty.
Brave versus courageous. Brave is a single act despite fear. Courageous is a sustained quality of character. It was brave to speak that day, but keeping going after that was courageous. One word of bravery became a lifetime of courage. And on that note, I think it is finally time to tell you what that word was. Now, speaking exercises. Deeply personal. Use vocabulary from the episode. Your brave moment.
Before the reveal, your moment. I want you to speak out loud right now. Complete this sentence. Say it out loud, even if your voice is quiet, even if you are alone, especially if you are alone. When it comes to speaking English, I feel... Now this one. The bravest thing I have ever done in English was...
And one more. One thing I am afraid of in English, but I am going to try anyway, is... That last sentence, I am afraid, but I am going to try anyway. That is the most important sentence in the English language for a learner. Not the grammar, not the vocabulary. That sentence right there. Think about a time when you were afraid to speak English, but you did it anyway. Even a tiny moment.
even one sentence, even one word. Hold that memory for a second. That moment, however small, is your version of what Priya did, and it deserves to be honored. Now, let us find out what she said.
Okay, after all this time, what was the one word Priya said in that meeting room?
Sorry.
Sorry?
She said, sorry. That was it. She opened her mouth and she said, sorry, with a small shake of her head, as if apologizing for the pause.
But that is so human, so simple,
So enough. It was enough. One word, imperfect, vulnerable, honest, and the world did not end. Nobody judged her. Sunita simply nodded, and the meeting moved on. And Priya had crossed a line she had been standing at for 3 years. She did not have to say something brilliant. She just had to say something. She just had to say something. And that is the truth that nobody tells you about speaking a new language. The first word does not have to be impressive. It does not have to be correct. It does not even have to make complete sense. It just has to exist. Did Priya keep speaking after that?
Slowly, imperfectly, with many pauses and many moments of wanting to go back to silence. But yes, she kept speaking. And she told me something recently that I will never forget.
What did she say?
She said, I spent 3 years waiting to be ready. And the truth is, that day in the meeting, I was not ready. I was terrified. I said sorry and meant it as an apology. But somehow, that one unready word was the beginning of everything.
You do not have to be ready. You just have to begin. You do not have to be ready. You just have to begin. What we learned today. The English lesson today. Scared. Immediate fear in the moment. Afraid. Deeper, ongoing fear. Brave. One single act despite fear. Courageous. Sustained quality of facing fear again and again. Hesitate. To pause from uncertainty. Vulnerable. Exposed and open to judgment. Avoidance. Staying away from fear, which makes it stronger.
And the life lesson. Avoidance feeds fear. Every time you stay silent, your brain learns that speaking is dangerous. The only way through is through. One word, one sentence, one imperfect moment that exists is worth more than 1,000 perfect moments that stay silent. You do not have to be ready. You do not have to be brilliant. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to begin. One word, even sorry, counts. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is speaking anyway. Key takeaway, courage is not the absence of fear. It is speaking anyway.
Here is your Sunday challenge. In the comments below, tell us your one word. The one English word or sentence you have been too scared to say. Write it down. Even writing it is a beginning. Even typing it in a comment is a tiny act of bravery. And we will be here to cheer every single one. And if Priya's story touched you, if it reminded you of yourself, please share this episode with one person who needs to hear it today. Someone who has been standing at the door for too long. Someone who just needs someone to lean over and say, take your time. Subscribe to Real English Podcast for a new episode every single day. We make every episode for you with all our hearts.
Thank you for being here this Sunday. You are braver than you know. Bye, everyone. Now go say something.